Welcome to Have More Babies. Today we're talking about something almost every parent encounters, sometimes with a bit of worry, actually.
Yeah, diaper rash.
Exactly, diaper rash in babies and toddlers. Apparently it's behind like 10 to 20% of complaints for kids under 2.
That sounds about right. It's incredibly common. So if you're dealing with it, well, you're in good company.
For sure. And even if it's usually mild, seeing your little one uncomfortable is just, it's tough.
It really is. So our goal today is basically to unpack diaper rash, look at the different kinds, what causes
That's
them,
perfect storm.
right, that perfect storm, and maybe most importantly, what we can actually do about it based on the info we've gathered.
And for listeners who want even more detail after this, omegapediatrics.com has a ton of great information.
Definitely check that out, omegapediatrics.com.
Okay, so starting basic, what is diaper rash? I know there are a few names for it, right?
Yeah, you might hear the older term nappy rash, or more medically, napkin dermatitis, sometimes diaper dermatitis. They all point to the same thing, essentially. Irritation where the diaper sits.
And it doesn't always look the same, does it?
Oh, not at all. That's what's interesting. It can be super mild, maybe just a little pinkness, a bit of inflammation,
Okay.
or it can get more extensive, actual skin erosion near
Okay,
the
got it.
perianal area. And very rarely, you might even see these sort of crater-like ulcers.
Wow, okay, that sounds quite serious.
It does, but thankfully that's rare. Most cases are much milder.
That's good to hear. So usually it's more like,
More often, you'll see maybe some localized spots, some blotches of redness. And importantly, the baby usually seems fine otherwise.
still happy, eating okay.
Yeah, generally, well, no fever. It's often something parents notice and, want to fix, even if the baby isn't super distressed by it yet.
Okay, so if we're seeing that redness, how do we figure out what kind it is? Because you mentioned there are different types.
Right. This is key for figuring out the best approach. We can generally think about four main types: irritant dermatitis, yeast rash, bacterial rash, and then allergic reactions.
Let's start with the first one, irritant dermatitis. Sounds like the most straightforward.
It is, and it's the most common.
Yeah.
It's basically caused by, well, irritation.
Yeah.
Exposure to urine, to feces, sometimes chemicals in the diapers or wipes themselves.
And moisture plays a big role here, I imagine.
A huge role. Damp skin is just much, much easier to irritate. Think of it like a wall. The baby's skin barrier gets weakened by the wetness, making it vulnerable.
Makes sense, like chapped hands in winter.
Exactly. So you'll see redness, maybe some discomfort, pretty clear signs of irritation.
Okay, and then yeast. You mentioned yeast.
Yes, yeast diaper rash. This involves an overgrowth of fungus, candida.
Like a thrush kind of thing?
Similar family, yes. And interestingly, antibiotics can sometimes trigger this.
Ah, because they upset the natural balance of microbes.
Precisely. Antibiotics can kill off good bacteria, letting the yeast, which loves warm, damp places like a diaper.
Take over.
Right. So it often looks like bright red inflamed patches, sometimes with little bumps, especially in the skin folds. And it can spread.
Gotcha. Okay, what about bacterial?
Bacterial diaper rash. Less common as the first thing, but it can happen, often when irritated skin gets infected.
So like staph or strep getting in.
Exactly. You might see signs like pus-filled blisters or sores, yellowish crusting sometimes. That's usually a sign you need medical help, likely antibiotics.
Definitely something to watch for. And the last one was allergic.
Allergic reactions, yeah. This is the baby's skin reacting to something specific. Could be the diaper material itself, the wipes, maybe even laundry soap used on cloth diapers.
And how does that look different?
Often more like hives or welts, that distinct allergic reaction look, rather than just general redness or bumps.
Okay, so identifying the type seems really important. Now let's dig into those causes more. That perfect storm you mentioned, what really creates it?
Well, the foundation is that irritation and dampness we talked about. Prolonged contact, a wet or soiled diaper, just sitting against delicate skin.
And the chemicals in the urine and feces themselves are irritating, right? Especially on damp skin.
Exactly. And it gets worse. There's a mention of ammonia forming when urine and feces mix outside the body.
Oh, I think I've heard that. So it becomes even more irritating over time.
Yes, it increases the pH, makes the skin more prone to break down, which just highlights why changing diapers frequently is so critical.
Every minute counts, almost.
Pretty much. Think of it like preventing a chemical burn, really. Frequent changes aren't just about cleanliness, they're active skin protection.
Which is, let's be real, sometimes hard. New parents are exhausted.
Totally.
Maybe you have a caregiver who isn't as experienced or a busy daycare where changes are, scheduled.
It's a real challenge. And no diaper, no matter how absorbent it claims to be, can keep all wetness away indefinitely. Stool especially needs to be cleaned off fast.
Yeah, there's no absorbing that.
Right. So failure to change quickly really sets the stage. And then on top of that, basic irritation.
You can get the fungus, the candida.
Exactly. That warm, wet environment is just ideal for yeast. So a simple irritant rash can easily become a yeast rash too. A double whammy.
Makes sense. What about food? Introducing new foods or diarrhea?
Yeah, those are factors too. New foods can sometimes change stool consistency, make it looser. And diarrhea obviously means much more frequent wetness and more irritating stools. So more contact, more risk of rash.
It all comes back to minimizing that contact time.
Pretty much.
I was also intrigued by the mention of antibiotics in breastfeeding moms potentially causing issues. How does that work?
Well, the idea explored in some studies is that if the mother takes antibiotics, a small amount might pass into the breast milk.
Okay.
And that could potentially disrupt the baby's gut flora, maybe leading to some diarrhea in the baby.
Which then leads back to the diaper rash risk.
Wow. It's an interesting potential link. And similarly, sometimes the switch from breast milk to formula has been associated with diaper rash in some babies.
Lots of potential triggers then.
Definitely.
So let's recap the symptoms. What should parents be looking for specifically?
Well, obviously, a rash in the diaper area. That's the main sign.
Can't miss that one.
Right. But seriously, in mild cases, you'll see that redness, maybe pinkness, some spots or blotches, but the baby seems okay otherwise.
Right, generally healthy.
Yeah, but in more severe cases,
That's when it looks worse.
yeah, the redness might be much more intense. The skin might look cracked or broken. You could see blisters, maybe even those ulcers we mentioned, though rare.
And the baby would likely be upset.
Oh, definitely. More distressed, crying, clearly uncomfortable, and the rash itself might spread, onto the thighs, maybe up the tummy a bit.
Okay, that paints a clear picture. So what do we do about it? What's the treatment plan?
The main goals are healing the skin that's already irritated and stopping it from coming back.
Makes sense.
And the number one thing is usually applying a barrier cream, generously, after every single diaper change.
Like those thick white zinc oxide cream?
Exactly. Zinc oxide, petroleum jelly-based creams. They create a physical barrier. Think of it like a shield between the skin and the wetness or stool.
Your first line of defense.
Absolutely. And right alongside that is, again, frequent diaper changes. Can't stress that enough.
And if your child's in daycare...
Good point. Have that conversation. Make sure they understand the need for prompt checks and changes, especially when there's an active rash.
Maybe even provide your preferred cream.
Good idea. Sometimes just switching the brand of diaper or wipes can help too, in case it's a sensitivity issue.
So the ABCs. Air it out, barrier cream, change frequently.
That's a great way to put it. ABC. Airing it out, letting the baby have some diaper-free time is great for letting the skin dry completely.
Bit tricky sometimes, but worth it.
Totally. And for C, cleaning, use plain water or gentle alcohol-free wipes. Avoid harsh soaps, bubble baths, lotions right on the rash. They could irritate more.
And those tight plastic pants over diapers.
Yeah, avoid those. They just trap moisture.
Okay. What if you suspect it's fungal, that yeast issue?
If it looks like yeast, that bright redness, maybe the little bumps in the creases, and it's not getting better with just barrier cream, then a doctor might prescribe a topical antifungal cream.
Like an athlete's foot cream, but for babies.
Sort of, yeah, but specifically formulated and prescribed for diaper rash. Usually clears it up pretty well.
When should parents definitely call the doctor? What are the warning signs?
Good question. Definitely seek medical advice if the rash just isn't improving after a few days of good home care, or if it starts to look different.
Like how?
Like if you see fluid draining, or those pus-filled spots suggesting bacteria, or white patches which could strongly indicate yeast. Also, if the baby develops a fever, that's a red flag.
Okay.
Or if they seem to be crying specifically when they urinate, suggesting it might be painful, maybe a UTI or severe irritation. Any of those, call the doctor.
That's really clear, thank you. Now, you touched on something fascinating earlier, comparing breast milk to barrier creams.
Ah, yes, the natural remedy question. It pops up a lot. There was a study back in 2013 that suggested breast milk might be comparable to a very mild, like 1% hydrocortisone cream for certain types of dermatitis rash.
Wow. So it does have some anti-inflammatory
It
properties.
seems like it might offer some soothing effect, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
maybe for very mild redness.
But
a later study from 2014 directly compared barrier creams and breast milk for typical diaper rash. And that one found barrier creams were actually more effective overall.
More effective at reducing symptoms and healing.
Yes. So the takeaway seems to be breast milk might soothe a little, perhaps in the mildest cases, but for really treating and preventing diaper rash, those barrier creams generally perform better according to the evidence we have.
Good to know the evidence there. Barrier creams are still the go-to.
Generally, yes, they provide that crucial physical protection.
Okay, and just to be super clear for parents trying to identify things, can we quickly recap the specific signs of bacterial versus yeast rash again?
Sure. For bacterial, think angry red skin. Often feels warm to the touch. You might see yellowish crusts, pimples, or actual blisters with fluid.
And maybe sores or oozing.
Exactly. Sores, ulcers, discharge. Those are strong signs of bacterial involvement and definitely warrant a doctor visit.
Got it. And yeast.
Yeast often presents as those distinct red bumps, sometimes described as satellite lesions, because you get a main patch and then little spots spreading out.
Especially in the folds.
Yes, thrives in those warm, moist creases, groin folds around the genitals. And a key clue is often that it just doesn't get better with standard barrier creams. It needs that antifungal treatment.
Understanding those differences really helps know when home care is enough and when you need backup.
Precisely. And again, if you're ever unsure, just call your pediatrician. Better safe than sorry.
Absolutely. So wrapping this up, the main message seems to be
Diaper rash is common. It has different phases: irritation, yeast, bacteria, allergy, and knowing the potential cause helps you treat it right.
and manage it effectively.
Yeah. Focus on keeping the area clean and dry. Use those barrier creams consistently. And don't hesitate to seek medical advice if things aren't improving or look concerning.
And for anyone wanting to dive even deeper into this or other infant care topics, omegapediatrics.com is the place to go.
Definitely. OmegaPediatrics.com has a wealth of resources.
Great. And of course, if you found this chat helpful, please do give us a like, subscribe for more conversations like this.
And maybe share it with another parent or caregiver. It's information we all need at some point.
For sure. Thinking about how diet, environment, antibiotics, all these things connect to something like diaper rash, it really makes you think. What other simple aspects of baby care have these complex layers underneath that maybe we don't always consider?
That's a great question to leave people with. Lots to think about.
Indeed. Well, thanks for breaking it all down for us today.
My pleasure.
And thanks to all of you for listening to Have More Babies.
Goodbye, everyone.
We'll catch you next time.